any other guest on the Lightforge.
Oh, wow.
It is Shadybunny.
What's up, guys?
Hold on. I fucked up. We gotta restart this.
Alright.
All right.
Take two.
Sorry about that. It's been a while since I screwed up that badly, okay? It's been a while. Oh, give me half a minute. Damn it. I just realized I just did not do the prep I was supposed to do.
Do I need to restart the audio?
Yeah. Restart the
air
Audacity.
conditioners on. Like, this is just bad.
Oh my
I
god.
was too busy watching you eat that protein pizza.
Protein pizza is amazing, man.
Sorry, we're
Alright.
professionals. We got this.
All right,
Well, Shady is.
delete your recordings. Shady's
Yeah.
super professional right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps, and today we have a very special guest. The third time on the Lightforge, more than any other person, Shadybunny.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be here.
I was
Yeah.
expecting a more lively entrance from you, Shady, but
No, he's got to be professional.
Guys!
You're in a shirt and tie. I understand.
Yeah, and for the first time, unlike the last time we saw him, Shadybunny is with a team now with ADWCTA Karma, a professional Hearthstone team.
Yeah, it's quite a change. I'm quite happy to be with them.
There you go. You are now a professional. It's crazy, right? We were just talking about sort of the work that you were putting in, like on the last Lightforge and the first Lightforge we had you on, and now it's sort of like you see the harvest, right? It's like you planted these seeds, and now you have this this fancy professional, I guess, position within a team now.
Nice.
Yeah, it feels really good to just have all that time that you put in, have it pay off. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, obviously. It's still fun if it pays off.
All right, well, let's jump into the arena. I'm sure people are like, yes, we really love Shadybunny and ADWCTA Karma, but what we want to hear about is what is going on in the Karazhan meta now that the patch hit. So if you guys don't know, the patch has already hit as predicted, and I think we predicted Tuesday, and Blizzard wanted to get it out Tuesday, but they didn't, but they got it out Thursday, and they were very good at communicating the whole delay and everything. So this new patch has been out for 4 days now, and it did, if you didn't listen to the last Lightforge, you should really listen to the last Lightforge, because that was like 2 hours of just like analyzing what the changes are. But just to sum it up, what happened is they removed a bunch of really bad cards from the lower classes, from like Priest up all the way through like Shaman and Druid, which are not really, you know, bad classes, but they still removed a bunch of bad cards for them. And they removed it, I think, based on some like internal statistics of how all these classes are performing. So Druid had 3 commons removed as an example, whereas Warrior had 6 commons removed. And as we know from offering rates, every time you remove a common card, or like any card, the old cards all kind of expand to fill in the gap, which means you see more Fiery War Axes, you see more swipes, all that good stuff. And on top of that, they removed some good cards from, like 2 good cards from Mage, and 2 good cards from, or 3 good cards from Mage, and 2 good cards from Rogue also. Not the best ones, but just like, you know, 2-drops and things like that. Like the Torch is gone, right? And so that's the balance changes, and it was done to balance the arena for class balance. So since that change has happened, let me ask you and Merps, what have you seen? What have you seen different than like before, than the I'm gonna call it Karazhan Meta A and Karazhan Meta B? No, that's a bad distinction. Karazhan Meta pre-patch and Karazhan Meta post-patch. That's better.
Good correction.
All right, Shady.
You wanna go first, Merps?
Oh, never mind.
Sure. You know, I'll go first, and the reason ADWCTA is asking us because he hasn't been playing. So
I've been busy making the tier list. So, okay, also the tier list is out. Like the full, large, like every single card got its value changed. We reset our things on 50. We're gonna talk about that later, or not, or like the next Lightforge or whatever. But that's what I've been working on.
yeah. Let's see. Post update, or how the arena is now. You definitely see more of the sort of quote lower classes. You see, you know, more hunters, a lot more shamans, definitely, and those decks just seem so much tighter, right? You don't have these sort of weird situational cards kind of getting stuck in your hand, or you're forced to pick it, or you're like, well, maybe it will work with some synergies. Like the shaman decks, you always have like the crackles, the flame tongues, the 4 mana 7/7s, and it just creates a very tight sort of experience. With priests, you're probably going to grab a Valen's Chosen more often. You're going to get the Temple Enforcers now. Not saying that it sort of totally changed the hierarchy, but it just feels better. So even when you go 1 and 3 with that priest, you're like, well, my deck felt better. So that's the most important.
We haven't changed going 1 and 3 with the priest.
Yeah.
But we've changed it so that you can at least play your Shadow Word Deaths while you're losing.
I have to say that I definitely agree with the statement that the hierarchy, at least, higher up, doesn't change. I feel like we still have Mage in a very comfortable first position. I think Rogue's still pretty comfortable in the second position. But it's just, like I said earlier as well, it's just a more quality of life update. Whereas if you're not, if you're playing for pure win rate, which I think a lot of the people are, when you're not infinite yet or when you're still gathering cards, if you can't pick a Mage or a Rogue and you're forced into, say, Shaman, Druid, Hunter, it feels better. Like, I've been seeing a lot of Shaman as well. I think that's something we have in common. And I've been afraid. Like, if I queue up in the 7/0 Shaman, it's just like, wow. It happens a lot more right now.
Yes.
I think it's also because it's like the mages have, to my feeling, a little less AoE. And it's just this annoying class when it keeps making totems and you don't really want to fire those portal totems, and they get value out of that. So I feel like the shaman in this expansion, contrary to before, was actually quite well against mage.
Yeah, and Shaman is one of those classes that it hinges a lot of its play hinges on like your flame tongue totems and your like Thunderbolt Valiants. That makes such a big difference to Shaman, and just increasing those offering odds by a little bit, it will make your whole draft feel a little safer. So you get to play as a shaman, right? Like that was always one of the things where you would pick some of these classes and then you wouldn't get to play as if you were these classes. You would just you would be missing like chunks. So it sounds like Blizzard's been doing a good job. Let me ask you guys this. So mages, after you're like 5-1 or 5-0, are they like 80% of the meta or like 60% of the meta, or are they finally down to below 50%?
Well, I'm pretty bad with numbers that way, but I'd say that it shouldn't change too much simply because it is still the best class. So people will, you can make other things better, but if mage is still the best, people are going to pick mage. So I feel in order for the meta to really, shake up, is they have to dethrone mage, basically.
Right,
to just make something just straight up better. Otherwise, people will keep picking mage and keep playing mage.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like Shady said, for the people who want to maximize their, they can't just mess around and play every single class. They haven't reached that state of infinite yet. It doesn't matter if mage is better by like 0.1 win or 0.5 win, or like better by 2 wins over, let's say, a hunter, right? If it is just better and everyone knows it's better, then everyone's still going to pick it. But how it feels in the game and sort of the results, that might be different. Although, the update has only been out for a few days, so I can't definitively say like, oh, well, it's so much different. But I think what it has done in these few days is it's gotten people to try out some lower tier classes. Like I said, especially Shaman, I've seen more of those. I've seen more Hunters, but this is anecdotal, right? Yeah. This is me maybe just with keeping an eye out for it and then sort of remembering every extra Shaman and Hunter that I see.
Yeah, and whatever changes are happening, I wouldn't have expected a huge change immediately. Right? Like, you wouldn't just, people don't even know what the patch does or the patch is coming out. They're not going to just stop playing Mage. But over the course of, a month, I think that's when you're going to see the effects really kick in, as people who primarily try to play Mage when they can eventually are forced to, because you're always forced to play other classes in the arena. You get 3 classes. You don't always get Mage or Rogue. And they're forced into picking these other classes, and they play them, and it turns out more okay, right? And then they may be more incentivized to maybe try another class, or to play these lesser classes a bit more often if they feel like it, or something like that. So I think it takes an adjustment period. There's definitely still like the stigma, right? And it's a correct stigma that these other classes are just worse than mage and rogue, and they're not. I don't know that they're feeling it yet. I don't know that they're the most people have gotten to the point where they've tested out these new changes, and most people aren't like sitting there. Like if you're someone who wants their gold, who wants their card, you're not sitting there being like, oh yes, now I can play warrior, right?
Yeah, probably not. But okay, so with this change, the one big question I had is like, it seems like we put it's like just three separate categories. You have the two nerf classes, right? The mage and the rogue, and you have the class that I guess they balance everything around, which is the paladin.
Eye for an eye, most balanced card in the game.
Right, and then you have everyone else. So when I really think about it, I'm like, well, if you're just bringing up druid the same as a priest, it's like, yeah, like what have you really done, right? Like, so in that aspect, I'm like, man, maybe in 2 weeks after everything, after sort of the novelty wears off, I'm just like, it's the exact freaking same thing.
Well, the order's the same, but that doesn't mean the what do you call it? Like not the intensity, like the degree is the same, right? Like if my priest was going to lose 60% of its games because it sucked, now it's going to lose 55% of the games because it sucks, because we've like squeezed all the classes in terms of how good they are, like a bit towards the middle. That's a good thing,
I guess.
No, you're not buying it.
Oh man, I'm really trying, dude. I'm really trying. Maybe it's just because of like, here's the thing, right? Blizzard hasn't done anything for the arena in such a long time, and then this thing came out, and it's huge, right? And in my mind, it's supposed to be huge. And now that I'm really sitting down and thinking about it, I'm like, maybe it won't do that much. But maybe I was sort of just getting my hopes up too much at the start. I don't know. Maybe it's hurting my head.
I think the huge thing here is that they've shown that they're willing to do this, right? They're willing to intervene and say, we can make a ban list. I'm going to put some cards on. And I think that that's going to have a lot of consequences now that the community knows that they're willing to do this, right? There'll probably be outcries later on, like, oh my god, it can't be that this card is still allowed in arena or whatever, right? It'll come at some point, I feel. But that aside, it's just great that they realize that this is like a fast measure, kind of more just patching up a wound rather than completely healing it. And so in the future, we can do a little bit more in depth with what they remove, or I think they said they were working on increasing and decreasing offering rates. So that could be pretty smooth, as in bringing the win rates a lot closer together without being so drastic, right? Just like you just feel it slightly, like, oh, it's like slightly less flame strikes,
more flame strikes, not less flame strikes, more flame strikes.
It's still a pretty good card, right?
Yeah. I mean, flame strikes are good. So I've had this question, and I haven't gotten a chance to ask you this yet. Which of the cards that have been removed do you miss the most, Shady? Like, because they removed a whole bunch of cards.
Yes. So for me, two cards, I would say. One I said was overpowered and crazy good the moment it came out, which was Goblin Out of Barber. Absolutely stupid how good that card is.
Yeah.
I've been picking that card over anything ever since it was released, pretty much. And then Cobra Shot, because Cobra Shot is reach for them. It's quite good. Although I have because of this, it's kind of the final drop for me now. I'm pretty much just not drafting any more Reach and Hunter, and I'm just going back to playing on curve and getting some fatties and closing it out the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Like, you get rid of a card like Cobra Shot, it kind of warps a little bit what your options are when you're doing the draft, and some maybe like for good, right? Like maybe you get the better curve and you can play the better hunter like that way. But I don't know. It was Cobra Shot's always been one of those cards that it's a shot that should not. It's like Power with Tentacles, right? Like it's a card that should be really bad, but because of how the class plays, it's only like. It's actually okay.
Yeah, it's totally dependent on the archetype it's drafted in. It can be really bad if you have a heavy curve. If you have a low curve, Cobra Shot is just pretty good. It's like pretty much a quick shot.
Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't also say Windspeaker there, because I think that was also a card that when we were chatting, I know that was a card that we just didn't understand, right? It's like Windspeaker, but you keep Wind Fury, and then when Adwicta and I talked about my reasoning, I was like, well, okay, I think Windspeaker is just a slightly harder card to play, and they're sort of taking away cards that are better the more, I guess, quote, skilled you are, or the more setup it requires, right? Like Cobra Shot is a heavily setup required card. Like it's very useless if you're playing as a hunter and let's say you're a beginner and you're like, oh, trading is good, let's trade, and then you look at Cobra Shot, you're like, wow, this is a really bad card. I'm just bringing him from like 20, 30, 20 health, and I'm going to keep trading on the board. But in the hands of someone like you, where you're going to aggressively go face, and then at the end, deal the final 2 damage with hero power, and you barely win, it's an amazing card because without that Cobra Shot, you wouldn't have gotten there, right? So, like in this situation, it seems like Blizzard is just taking away a lot of cards in these lower classes that are actually good if you set up for it, if you draft towards it, if you play towards it, and it's a real shame because like these options are now gone, I feel.
Yep. Yeah, I think that you pretty much worded what I feel as well there. And Blizzard's amazing at doing this, especially in Hearthstone. And it's a good thing, right? They cater towards the more casual player because that's what keeps them, interested, and that's what attracts people to the game. Like you can just start and have fun, and Blizzard is trying to, increase your enjoyment from the game and decrease the chance that you just get stomped super hard. So cards like Soul of the Forest and Poison Seeds and Windspeaker and stuff, I think those are great examples because those are cards which inherently there's nothing wrong with them. An experienced drafter will recognize when those cards are going to be pretty darn good in the deck, but it's not very often that that's the case, and I think it's more of a noob trap where people see those cards like, oh, cool, I'll pick it, and then it kind of doesn't do anything. It's more like a dead card, weighs down their curve. So I feel like by removing those cards, you protect the newer player because you can't draft it anymore, so you also can't misdraft it, right?
Yeah. It is, and that brings in kind of another interesting aspect of this, right? Which is if you're getting rid of the noob traps or the bad classes, but they're not going to start with the bad classes. They're starting with mage. Why? Because mage, right? They're starting with like if anyone's starting, they're starting with mage because your tutorial's on the mage. And then if they were to branch out and they talk to their friends, it's like, what class should I pick in the arena? You probably get Paladin as a recommendation, and maybe rogue, depending on for new people. I wouldn't recommend rogue, but I know that there are people who would just be like, well, it's the second best class, just take it and figure it out. And the noob trap cards are still there because they didn't get rid of Eye for an Eye. They didn't get rid of... God, Rogue has so many. I don't even know if they're noob trap cards because they actually just look like they suck. But they are really bad. I'm talking about Poison Blade or things like that.
Yeah, true. But I mean, I guess the class itself being strong helps counteract that.
Yeah.
I think it's their aim here was to make the less popular classes more played. So by removing it there, maybe even letting them stay in Rogue makes it a bit easier for them to kind of scare them away from. It's like, sure, go play Druid, go play Shaman.
Go play normal class. Avoid these poison blades. You don't know what to do with them. So let's go back to the whole arena balance, between the class balance, right? Because that's one of Blizzard's big focus on the whole thing. And their focus is to make mage and priest closer together, which I think, at least from just judging on the changes, it should have made a pretty big difference. I did some math on it, and the average difference in deck quality from both pre-change to post-change is the equivalent of changing 2/4 3-drops into 3/4 3-drops, as between a mage and a warrior, which was the most buff class. So
that is a very specific...
I just had to use something as a source of measurement. I could have picked a whole bunch of things. I just used a drop upgrade, right? Because a 2/3, a 2/4 is a viable 3-drop, but it's not that good. A 3/4 is a really good 3-drop.
It's just so weird. It's like how much do you weigh? It's like I weigh approximately 17 and a half
well, there's no
unripened
unit of.
oranges. It's like, obviously everyone uses unripened Peruvian oranges as a measurement,
Okay,
right?
but there are no pounds and there are no kilograms in the world of these kinds of valuations. I don't have a standard to go by.
I'm sure there was a better way to do this. That's all I'm saying. Go on.
All right. Okay, so, or you could look at it as replacing I can't do this off the top of my head.
Okay, let's just stick with it. But okay, in all honesty, that is quite significant.
Yeah, right? Like if you get to replace 2 of your mana drops with like good drops, that's really good, and that's kind of the difference between warrior and mage in terms of what the change did. So that's going to make a difference. But what I'm more curious about is when they're making the adjustments, because something I noticed is they moved priest up by 4 commons. They removed 4 commons from priest, but 6 from warrior, and they removed 3 from shaman and 3 from druid, and I think also 3 from warlock, maybe 4 from warlock. I'm not. I don't have the numbers in front of me. So where are we on class balance? Like I know Shady, you just mentioned that shaman seems really powerful now. Druids could be really powerful. Has priest fallen like even farther behind, like Merp suggested? I'm with you in that it doesn't feel like these changes are good, but they're not going to topple mage, right? And rogue arguably lost more than mage did even. So like the mage 1, rogue 2, everything else afterwards seems like it's going to hold steady. But what about the order within the rest of them? Do you think anything like that has changed?
Well, why don't we compare our lists right now? Because I think that could be a different. Well, I mean, something in the range of tiers, right? Don't have to be 1 through 9.
Yeah.
Because that could be a difference. So.
Okay, so priest is worst, mage is first, rogue is second. We're not arguing about any of those. Let's focus on the other 6 classes in the middle.
All right. So for me right now, I would say that, and it's still under testing, but I'd say shaman is third for me right now, from what I've seen and from what I've had with my decks. I'd say druid's fourth, but that could be subject to change with the shaman. Paladin 5, warlock 6. Now warlock can be higher, but I feel like for me it just hasn't worked. I think I may just be hitting a poor average with that. I'd say maybe even hunter above warlock, but I know that can't be right. Like logically that can't be right.
Hunters are doing pretty damn well these days though.
No, they're doing well, but actually that feeling you had, that's actually where I would rank. So I would put shaman as 3 as well. I would put warlock right behind them. I just think that like by clearing up by helping the warlocks curve out even more, it's just so good. It's so freaking powerful.
Yeah. After the change, I guess.
Yeah.
We can move it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's really like kind of in like maybe shaman 3 and then druid, paladin, warlock a little bit like in a mixture there, right?
I actually have paladin really low. Like for me, I don't know if I would like I think paladin is like kind of like warrior level right now. Because of
what? Oh yeah, wow, that is low.
I think Fool's Bane is amazing, and I think Paladin their weaknesses really show right now. Just their lack of flexibility, and it's so like when they win big. Like they win really, really big with their power cards, and they are like one of the most helpless classes if you just like sort of play around the only way that they can win, right, which is snowball on the board. A lot of classes have like multiple ways to win, and with Paladin, it's like even the powerful cards that they got, it's like, oh, it's a 4-mana buff. Like we've never seen that before, right? They haven't gotten new ways to win, and if you keep on giving a class the same way to win, and it doesn't, not even varying up the mana, I just think it weakens the class significantly. So, yeah, I don't know. For me, Paladin is super weak right now, but this could be just, I mean, it could just be a small sample size, and I could be wrong.
Okay. Yeah, I think that might also just be how you experience it when it's not going well. because I feel with Paladin, that's why I try to stay away from Paladin for a very long time. It's very like all or nothing, like you mentioned. But I feel like average wise, the times where it does go well, it really makes up to still make it an average class. I feel if you're willing to draft a little bit more, um, like towards the middle, like get a little bit more early game, so you don't get absolutely destroyed when it's not going that well, right? That's why what I'm trying to do with my Paladin. If I'm drafting it, I'm focusing on making sure I have like 3 or 4 1 drops, get that early game, do your thing. Because even kind of a bad Paladin deck, if it has the board, Paladin cards are pretty dumb. So if you like one or two
Yes.
that do something,
It's a
so
good
it's
way
like
to
very
describe it. It's
unambitious.
pretty
It's like
dumb.
the Paladin decks where it's not Zombie Chow, Mini Bot Muster, the decks where it's not all that. I just try to get 5 or 6 and just like not complete failure by drafting pretty unambitious. Just focusing on that early game, making sure you get something going. And then, when you do get that crazy deck, it's like, hey, let's go 10, 11, 12, something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's something to be said for the biggest hit class was Mage. I think we can all kind of agree on that, and that was the Paladin hard counter. So there's something to be said for Mage.
You mean
For
Rogue?
Yeah, Rogue. My bad. Did I say Mage?
I was like, you're saying mage.
But we all know you mean Rogue because Mage is
Yeah.
not the right answer. Yes, yes, I mean Rogue. Rogue was the Paladin hard counter, and Rogue got hit the hardest because of cards like Auto Barber that we were talking that Shady was bringing up before that are no longer in the meta, and the cards that they removed from Rogue are like the worst cards against Paladin, right? It's that kind of like early mid game initiative that like wipes the Paladin off the board and makes the Paladin like suffer the most. And so they're really getting Rogue in the area where it affects their dominance over Paladin like the most significantly. Because if you're really blessing of King something and then you remove something and it gets sapped, like it's not the biggest deal. It's like playing a big minion and getting sapped. It's like the same thing. But yeah, let's before we go on to, and I think this is a very interesting topic, I'm going to switch the order up a little bit. We're going to talk about Warrior next, specifically, because we've been kind of dancing around the Warrior, and I just don't want to save it to the end. But before we get there, let's do a question from the GOAT. Merps, you have the question from the GOAT?
Yes, and I'm gonna give credit to Shady because I didn't have the question from the GOAT 3 minutes before it started, so I just made Shady come up with it. So thank you, Shady.
Shady is the GOAT today.
I know. So actually, Shady, do you want to ask it?
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell your your former self in around the GVG era with the knowledge you have now? So, what would you say? Like, would you say play more for tempo, play more for card advantage, play warrior while you can, play priest while you can, or something like that? So yeah, if you guys want to start, go for it.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
I'll take this first. So GVG era was after we were all like good arena players at that point. So this isn't really like us becoming infinite or figuring stuff out. At that point, we've only really seen one meta. Like before GVG, it was the classic meta. Nax changed it a little bit, made it a little bit more sticky on the board, but not that big of a change. And GVG totally upended everything. And so I would have told myself that the arena is just what cards are in the meta. Like, that's literally what it is. I think I intellectually knew it, but I didn't fully grasp the concept, because if I did, I would have adjusted much faster. Like, before that, I was like, oh, card advantage and tempo, they're equally important. Or, like, tempo's a little bit more important. But that's not it, right? Like, tempo's way more important than card advantage. You only need card advantage if you run out of cards, essentially. And you don't run out of cards in so many of your games, even if you just kind of play normally before the game's already decided. But you're always on the board. Board leads to face damage. Board leads to controlling the board to prevent your opponents from dealing you face damage. Board leads to freaking card advantage if you get good trades. So I think the degree to which I was focused on the dynamic between tempo and card advantage was greatly skewed by the only meta I had known at the time. And I thought it was like a fundamental part of the arena, when really it wasn't. It was just what the meta happened to be. And where you could be like, if you focus on tempo a little bit more than card advantage, you were pretty tempo heavy, and you could get, a lot of wins that way. But in reality, you should be even more tempo. And then when the cards switch to be that good of tempo cards that it will overrun your card advantage potential, you should really go with the swing, like tempo being 2, 3, 4 times more important than card advantage for the GVG meta.
Yeah, something like that, I guess. That's a lot of words, dude. I don't know if I can.
You can be more concise.
All right, I would just play Hunter more because Glazeduko is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, I mean, like, I don't even remember back then, but I'm sort of. It's like fuzzy, happy moments of my childhood when the card pool was a lot less, and you had a lot of Glazedukas, and you just like 3 Glazedukas, and
there wasn't even an offering bonus. There was just not enough cards, so Glazeduka happened a lot.
See, unfortunately, though, it was also the era of increased offering rate to Shielded Minibot and Muster for Battle.
Oh,
so
that's right, Muster for Battle.
Like, a Hunter would have been so... you're just thinking, it's like, wow, with that small card pool and an offering bonus to Glazeduka...
No, there was no offering bonus.
There was no offering bonus?
Offering bonus kicked in TGT. That was the first one with offering bonus. That's why there weren't even more Glazedukas. That's why you couldn't get 4 per deck consistently.
But the small card pool... And I'm like, well, you definitely have a lot of Glazedukas, but then Paladins had their Shielded Minis and their Muster for Battles in the same expansion, so Hunters got wrecked.
I think they didn't get wrecked. They were really good.
They were good, but if they didn't have Paladins,
rate in GVG I averaged 8+ with Hunter in GVG.
See, there we go.
Yeah, but you would have averaged like 10 if it wasn't Paladin. No, like seriously.
I hated Paladins.
Yeah, Paladins were the only thing holding you back in GVG. Now it's kind of silly. You're just like, oh, okay, Paladins don't. They're not really the counter to Hunters anymore.
No, not even close.
No, but back then it was just like, what were you gonna do?
Yeah. But that would have been cool though, right? If like all of a sudden GVG came out and you're like, who's the best class in the arena? Mage or Rogue or Pally? And you're like, Hunter. Hunter, best class. Especially because Hunter, I think, was legitimately the worst class before that. Because that's back when like Warrior was fine and Priest was vaguely okay, and Hunter just got the Starving Buzzard nerf. So it was like a mix of like people not figuring out how to play a Hunter without a really good like overpowered Starving Buzzard, and a mix of like them just like not having a lot of good cards at the point. And also, just like I was saying, right, like the tempo face thing was not very well developed at that point. So you could be like Shady and be on top of the meta and push Hunter to like 8 point whatever wins per run in GVG. Okay, so that was a question from the GOAT, brought to you by Shady, but also by our patrons.
Well, I'll answer it myself.
Oh, that's right.
Right.
You asked the question.
I won't drag it out very long. I really, like I said, I learned the game in GVG, so I actually never, or very, very briefly did the whole vanilla arena thing, classic. So I would actually do the reverse. I would say like, sometimes it's not always tempo, right? Sometimes it's okay to do that.
You're the opposite.
It's like the Loot Hoarder is not an unplayable card. It's from a pure tempo point of view, it's a trash card. Can't play it. That and Warrior. I figured Warrior out pretty much at the end of GVG. I just drafted Face Warrior every time. It was the best thing I've ever done. It was so much fun. I wish I knew that at the start, because for pretty much entirety of GVG, I thought Warrior was unplayable. And then once I figured out, like, oh my god, you can just draft Face Warrior, pretty reliable, super fun archetype.
Yeah, you can't just... it's easy to look at the Warrior and think of it as a defensive class, especially because of how constructed it was at the time, where it was like just control Warrior, and you look at the hero power, and it's giving you health, which is pretty useless for going face. And at the time, the Warrior with that Arcanite Reaper, that 5-mana Pyroblast, those are the days.
Oh yeah. Reckless Rocketeer on 6, Arcanite on 5, that's 15 damage over 2 turns. So good.
The burst, it was really the most bursty kind of class, whereas Hunter was the consistent like chip away, put you in a position where you can't possibly recover in time to kill the Hunter before you're dead. All right, so the question for the GOAT patron, Patreon.com/grinninggoat. That's how the Lightforge is supported. Thank you guys so much for your support. And we're going to use this to segue into our talk about the warrior in today's meta. So we had like purposefully kind of not discussed the warrior in the last Lightforge, even though we went over pretty much every other class, to reserve it for this Lightforge because it's kind of a topic in and of itself, right? Like Fool's Bane. I don't know, Shady. Tell me if you disagree. In terms of just pure card quality, I think Fool's Bane is the best card in Karazhan.
It's pretty ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
when paired with a Violet Illusionist, yeah, you feel
Oh, gosh.
incredibly just powerless when it's happening to you. Like, no, stop! Those are my things.
12
Stop
damage
killing my
whenever you
things.
want.
And normally, there's a punish attached to that, you'd be able to kill them, right? But it's wow, yeah, that combo is wow, incredible when it happens to you, and it's happened quite sometimes.
No. And so that card, in terms of drafting as a warrior, that's dominating the meta, right? Because we've gone over this. Like, Karazhan offering bonus is insane. Whatever card you get for Karazhan, especially if it's a good card, that will dominate your drafts. You see Shamans, you have the Spirit Claws, which is kind of a weird place to be. But, like, if Spirit Claws did not have the offering bonus, you draft it a lot more often, right? Like, if Firelands... I'm skipping Firelands Portals these days because there are so many Firelands Portals, and I don't want to have, like, 10 7-mana cards between the Fireland Portals and the Flame Strikes I'm going to get off.
Well, you're skipping them for other good cards.
Right,
you're,
right,
not,
right.
you're not like, all right, Nomergon Infantry, you're
Right.
in.
But I'm like,
I don't want too many portals.
Look, pick one Frostbolt or Firelands Portals, hands down Frostbolt, right? Like, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about, which normally you may think that's kind of, Firelands Portal seems like it's going to be better, but it's not going to help you win the game as much because you're going to get so many cards along that. Anyway, Firelands Portal is not as big of a problem because it's pretty flexible, right? You can go face with it, you can remove minions from it. 7 mana is kind of slow, which is kind of its only problem. Fool's Bane has a much bigger problem, right? Fool's Bane is like designed with such a heavy weakness to it, and the weakness basically screams, "Don't have too many of me."
Yeah,
It's a very specific card. It's not something you can do over and over again.
yeah. It almost takes up 2 weapon slots, right? If you look at weapon slots and you say, well, I've drafted like 4 weapons, that's below average. I won't really have to worry about my health. If you have like 8 weapons in the deck, you're like, all right, well, maybe, this N'Zoth's first mate, I got to really be careful with these 4 charges and not just like hit with everything, because then when I draw my Death Spites, my Arcanite Reapers, I won't be able to use them on minions. Fool's Bane, I think, takes up like basically 2 of those what I call weapon slots.
Yeah.
And with the offering bonus, you pick up 2 Fool's Bane, and it's essentially like you have 4 weapons. And it's even faster because those other weapons, you need 2 turns, right? You could just use up all your charges of Fool's Bane at once if you so desire. So it's one of those weapons that has a lot of power, but it's pretty dangerous at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, so the problem is also it's a compounded problem, right? Because you're looking at it as you're saying, oh, it takes up each Fool's Bane takes up 2 weapon slots. You get 2 Fool's Banes, it takes up 4 weapon slots. You want 4, 5, 6 weapons, but they're not normal weapons. If you take a normal weapon and you're over weapon, you just go face with it. You can never go face with Fool's Bane, and even though they're taking up 2 weapon slots, your chances of actually drawing them is the same as 1 weapon slot. So they make your games much more tilted based on whether you draw them or not, right? If you draw 2 of them, all of a sudden you're like over weapon immediately. And on the other hand, if you don't draw any of them, which is entirely possible, you're going to lose because you're a warrior without weapons at that point. So it suffers from this like feast or famine thing because you've concentrated so many of your quote-unquote weapon slots into one card, and you draw the card at the same frequency, so it's much easier to bunch those things up. And so it kills the flexibility that warriors have to go face, and the flexibility that warriors have to actually use their removals because you're concentrated.
That does mean you can really up the value of cycle cards in Warrior as well, just to make it a bit less RNG heavy. Whether get the Fool's Bane or whether you'll be stuck without. So that's something I've, for instance, been doing in Rogue. I've been upping the amount of cycle cards if I notice the quality of my deck is where I want it to be.
Yeah. And so
So
what are you
something
looking
I
at for your quality of the cards? Like, are you looking for like assassinates and saps, or like eviscerates and backstabs, or just like
uh,
generally?
yeah, I think it's mainly the reactive cards indeed. Just it's so consistent if you have like I think, and this is kind of funny, but I have this new system on my stream where people can donate and basically dictate my next draft. And there was this, yeah, it's very funny.
Ooh.
Yeah, so one of my moderators donated, and he said you have to pick every kind of draw slash cycle in a rogue. And I went 12, and I had to skip
Nice.
some ridiculous card. I was like, I sprinted on curve twice, just to give you an idea, and it was totally fine because I picked every reactive card I could and then every cycle card I could, and I just got all my removal every time, and it just felt like I kind of was just winning because whatever they threw at me, I removed, and I had more cards because I had loot hoarders and novice engineers and scarabs and stuff. So it's funny how by kind of a funny run like that, you not going to say discover a new archetype, but just a new way to play a class. And now I'm trying that in other classes as well, seeing. So that's my finding for now. Like if the quality of the deck is where I want it to be, then cycle goes up. I mean that's common knowledge, but it's something good to focus on. So
Yeah.
especially when you mention that with the warrior, that it's very all or nothing, whether you get the fool's bane or not. You
And
can
it's
just increase the value of the cycle.
Yeah, and especially if you're looking for combos, right? That's what like cycles and card draw are even better for when you have a 2 card combo that you want to hit. And warriors have this 2 card combo called Violet Illusionist and Fool's Bane that both have offering bonuses that you're likely to have. So
Absolutely.
you put some cycles in, and the problem with warrior, of course, is like compared to a rogue, is when you fall behind, your way of removal also hurts yourself. So it's like it's harder than having saps and assassinates and things like that. But if you can get your combo, well then you've removed your barrier, right? Now you just remove the whole board on one turn and put down a 3 drop.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit different depending on the class, right? For example, you picked a class rogue that has, if it doesn't have the most removals of any class, it's way up there, right?
Yeah.
Like mages have tons of removals, rogues have tons of removals, like really, and also mana efficient removals, like sap, right? I think it works with a lot of classes, and even for some classes like shaman, in which they do depend on the board, but they can play off the board a little bit.
Right.
Something like a priest or a paladin,
Yeah.
man, it's so hard to do that, right? Like, because how many?
Yeah, I
how
mean,
many
you
keeper
wouldn't do
Voldemorts?
that. You would not do
Yeah.
that with a priest or a paladin, and even a warlock probably not, unless you like
Right.
really do have those like board clear cards that warlocks sometimes have.
In Paladin, you'd want much more something like a Jeeves, right? Just
Yeah.
put everything on the board, put the Jeeves down,
Mm-hmm.
and let it do work.
Yeah.
Cycle, not so much.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this. Warrior, when it comes to weapons, would you say that Death's Bite is worse now than it was before Karazhan because of Fool's Bane offering bonus? Because that's something that we were like playing with and wondering about and like trying to really like figure out. Like Warrior's tough in the Karazhan meta in terms of like figuring out how to draft for it. Like on one hand, right, it's Death's Bite. It's an amazing card. And on the other hand, wow, if you're going to get all these weapons, they're going to start going face, and then it's a little bit less valuable of a card. But
I think we can make this comparison to kind of the class tier list where we say, yeah, mage can become a little bit weaker, but it's still mage. So I think we can treat it the same way for the Death Spite. Like, yeah, it might not be as good, but it's still a Death Spite, right? So I think that it's going to be rare that you skip it. I mean, it should be very late in the draft, and you should already be quite overloaded with weapons. I don't think we should start skipping Death Spite early just because, like, oh, I'm probably not going to have enough weapon slots.
So how many weapons is a good number? Assume 2 Fool's Banes. How many more weapons would you like say is good, and how many would be too many? At which point you think you'll put like a penalty on on
But
drafting
I have to
more.
say, I don't have enough experience
Yeah.
right now in the charisma meta to like accurately. But from what I would imagine, it heavily depends on how your deck looks at that moment, like how much early game you have, how much late game you have. I feel like that always dictates how many weapons I want. If I have a very light deck, I'm really gonna want to kind of avoid those Fool's Banes because it doesn't really do what you want it to do in late game, right?
Yeah.
You want to go face. Um, where for a normal control deck, I think that if you pick two early weapons and then maybe like let's say we have an Azad's first mate, a Fiery War Axe, and then a Dead Spite and two Fool's Banes, I think you're in a very comfortable position. I don't think that needs to be anymore.
Yeah. Merps?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I've only played some warrior, and if you have two Fool's Banes, like okay, it's gotten to the point where you can't call all weapons the same, right? Like I'm
No,
pretty
right.
yeah, I mean I'm pretty reluctant actually to draft Nizat's first mate now. Like not reluctant, but you know, my evaluation of that card is not the same if we didn't have the offering bonus to Fool's Bane, right? You know, it's a small weapon, and a lot of times like that face damage is really, really important now, and I'm never using those charges, right? So it's just not gonna happen. I'm still taking big weapons because that's sort of more bang for your buck, right? Arcanite Reaper, I think is still, you know, I would still happily draft that. So I think it just sort of shifts my evaluation of the cards. But as for weapon, like if we're talking mid-sized weapons, I'll still happily take like, you know, 4 more weapons or something, and obviously take every Violent Illusionist offered to me, because in the worst case scenario, it's a 3 mana 4/3, which is absolutely fine. That's a typical stat line that I'm pretty happy with, and because they also cleaned up a lot of situational warrior cards, so
Yes,
you're gonna have
exactly.
yeah, you're gonna have your cleaves, you're gonna have your executes.
Oh, I was gonna
Ravaging
go with you're
Ghoul.
gonna have your weapons. You're gonna be
Oh
offered a
well,
lot of weapons.
well, no. I mean, you know, other than your weapons, right? Other than your weapons, you're going to have these cards that complement your weapon when your opponent sort of puts out stuff that, because when you show a weapon, you show them exactly how much damage you can deal and how many times you can hit, right? So you need these sort of expectation buster cards, which are going to be your cleaves, your executes. So when, you know, you have when you have an Arcanite Reaper out and they put out like a Spectral Knight, right? And they're like, oh, this is perfect. And then, you know, you can Ravaging Ghoul and then kill it and also drop another thing. Or, you know, they put out small minions to your big weapon and you can cleave. Like, it just exponentially makes the warrior better.
Yep. And I think that's kind of the theory we've been going on for our tier list when it comes to warriors and the weapons, because I've thought a lot about how Fool's Bane is affecting everything. And one of the things, like, Arcanite Reaper's is 60 right now, because it takes up the same mana slot as Fool's Bane. You're gonna have so many Fool's Banes, and it uses your face if you wanted to like actually do work, right? Like, and it uses a lot of your face, like you're talking about, right? There's not that, like, it's not like all weapons are the same. This Arcanite Reaper takes a lot of your face. It's
Sure.
a 10 damage to your face kind of thing. Like, it's not Nazatha's first mate where you may only deal 3 damage, but you may take a lot more face damage. But it's it commits you to it, right? Like, if you take a Arcanite Reaper and you're throwing it to your opponent's face, you don't want that to be like what you're locking in the Arcanite Reaper to do in your deck, you know? Like, because the Fool's Bane is not flexible. The Fool's Bane is hitting the board. So when you're looking, if you ever over weapon, then your Arcanite Reaper starts being reserved for going face, because you know what your Fool's Bane is doing. And so it at a lot of the weapons in Warriors, we've kind of moved down. You may not be able to notice it too much because weapons have always been like so highly rated, especially since the Karazhan patch, since the Karazhan meta came out. We made the prediction, and I think it's true, that weapons are the absolute best thing in this meta, pretty much. So they all got like a whole huge like scores bumped up, and now in the Warrior with the Fool's Bane offering bonus, it's all kind of like dropped down to even lower than where they were before. And all of this will be lifted as soon as the offering bonus to Fool's Bane goes away. So the Warriors are about, like, those weapons are about to go go pretty high. But that's just one of the examples, right? Like Death Spite's at an 84, Arathi Weaponsmith at a 92. They would all be higher, right? Like Death Spite's at 84, but you compare that to where a True Silver Champion is, which is a 96, and Death Spite is probably as good, if not better, than a True Silver Champion. So that's like, there's more stuff to the tier list update, but that's just one of the things I wanted to point out as a way that we've been adjusting to the warrior situation with Fool's Bane in the Karazhan meta.
Yeah, I think the offering bonus is something that is, we all know about, but man, you really have to play around it now. Like, especially I think we're in a really unique situation where it's an adventure, first of all. So the offering bonus is applied to a smaller pool of cards,
and it's such a big bonus.
Right, it's such a big bonus, and the fact that they just got rid of some cards, it just like all of this means that you're seeing so many Karazhan cards, right? You're seeing so many Pompous Thespians and Violent Illusionists, and then the class cards. The mage is going to have Firelance Portal. The warrior is going to have Fool's Bane, and the druid is going to have Moonglade Portal as well. These are things that you should 100% play around, because you just know they're going to have it, since they're probably picking those almost every single time.
Yeah. By the way, if you guys are wondering, the offering rates for weapons, for real weapons, not including Ogre Wormwall, which is a fake weapon.
Wormwall's currently not even being offered, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So not including the Ogre Wormwall before the patch, like in the Karazhan meta, like the Karazhan meta pre-patch. That term we threw out in the beginning was 5 on average ish. And after the patch, it is now 6. So just to give you an idea, that like you will see a ton of weapons, and of course I'm counting like Ninzatha's First Mate as a weapon, and Arathi Weaponsmith as weapons. So it's very much on the high end of like what people think of in terms of numbers of weapons in the warrior, and it's because of these, the removal of all these non-weapon cards, and it's because of the offering bonus to Fool's Bane. So on average, you're going to be getting a lot of weapons. And so, like Shady said, right, you're not like skipping a Death Spite unless like you already have your like 7 weapons or like whatever. But it's something to keep in mind if you're making like a debate. Like I'm looking at it. So here's something else about the warrior, which was always true, but like if you look at the tier list at 72 plus cards, which is one of our rankings if you group it by modern quality, and this is the tier list at the lightforge.com, it's just all yellow, which means it's all class cards. You have like Zombie Chow, Piloted Shredder, Kraken, Kodo Rider, and Piloted Sky Golem. And other than that, you have like 15 class cards, right? Like that's the warrior. They have a whole crap ton of overpowered class cards. And so if you're debating between like a Death Spite and a Piloted Shredder, and you already weapon compared, I think you give the Piloted Shredder a go. If it's the first pick, Death Bite is still rated higher, but it's something to think about now. It's no longer what it was like pre-Karazhan, where like you see a weapon, you take a weapon, right? Like that's how it used to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so let's move on to the last topic, which is card good bad, where we tell you whether a card is good or bad. And Shadybunny picked this card good bad, and it's a great card good bad that we haven't really touched upon yet. And I really like the specific pick. It is Swashburglar, which is the rogue 1-mana card that was added in Karazhan. It's a 1/1 battle cry, 1/1 for 1 mana battle cry. Add a random card to your Shade. Start us off.
It's a card I initially had underrated. Looking at it, I looked at the 2-mana variant, the Huckster. I was like, well, I mean, Huckster's really good, but is it going to be that great because it's just the 1/1? Meta's probably going to be still fairly slow. It's going to get pinged off here and there. But yeah, it is amazing. It doesn't cost you a card. That's the big deal, right? So you can still play a 1-drop without getting punished for the loss of card, because it will give you something. And your opponent cannot really play around it. So there's that. Also, the synergy with the peddler is absolutely amazing. I'll give the example I gave before the podcast as well. Today I Swashburglar the Savage Roar, and then I played Peddler on curve to discount it, and then I had a 1 mana Roar, and I used it to turn afterwards for lethal. So that's pretty stupid, and that happens quite often. That you have burgled Pyroblast, Fireball, Polymorph, lots of mage cards, obviously, lots of mage. But yeah, it's and then you usually just dagger on turn 2 and take down a 3/2, or they spend turn 2 pinging. So it's a very solid card to just give your deck a little bit of an early game boost, but without the loss of value.
Yeah, Swashburglar, man, it's just one of those cards where, and we can talk about Babbling Book in the same way, right? They're pretty much just like very similar cards.
Babbling Book is 2 points below Swashburglar. They're both above Yeti.
Right. I think for infinite players like us, these cards are so frustrating to play against because a lot of sort of one of the big factors that sort of allows us to get above 7 wins is our ability to sort of anticipate counterplays, make reads, and sort of play around that, right? How do you do that when it is a completely random card, right? Like you're facing a warrior and you have no idea. It's like, well, they could have gotten a bolster or they could have gotten a brawl. And you never want, to see Swashburglar after Babbling Book after Babbling Book, and then you can't really play around it, and then you just get wrecked by the brawl. You get wrecked by the random Pyroblast. And that's just really unfortunate because like it just gives them this ability to win the game, and there's really nothing you can do because there's like 30, 40 cards that you have to anticipate, and there's just no way you can get enough information on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's I agree with Shady's analysis that it's kind of it's a tricky card, right? Like, it seems like it doesn't do all that much, but then you play with it and it does. And I really want to emphasize what Shady was talking about with the Ethereal Peddler synergy, which I don't know, if you listen to us a lot, we downplay a lot of combos, and we do it for good reason because combos are inconsistent and all that. But when you have one of these like inter-class bonus combos, they're no longer all that inconsistent. You're going to, on average, get offered more than one Ethereal Peddler. And you're going to take the Ethereal Peddler more likely than not because it's a pretty damn good card. And you're going to get offered a whole ton of Swashburglars because it's the common one. With Ethereal Peddler, you're not going to play it until turn 5 anyway earlier, so you have enough time to play your Swashburglars. And it all comes together more times than you think it will. Not that you should build a deck to rely on it, but if that's the bonus that gets you an extra win or two on the run, that's a pretty big deal, right? Like that's not something you just like discount of like, oh, I'll hit it, once in a blue moon, but like I shouldn't think about it. You should think about it because it has the offering bonus. Like this is what Karazhan does. This is not like you shouldn't be thinking about, I don't know, your junk bot synergy with your 3 mechs necessarily, but like when you're drafting. But you should be thinking about this synergy because it matters.
Yeah, the big part for that combo is that they're 2 very solid standalone cards. Pitfire is an amazing card, and we just explained why Swashburglar is good, so it just adds on to that. Like the combo is pretty much free because you're not going out of your way to pick a pit fighter essentially. So I think that's really the super bonus of that combo. Is that there is no loss of potential by saying like comparing it to the junk bots. So,
yeah, Swashburglar card, good bad. It is good, and I think we'll end this Lightforge on that note. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Shady, or to our listeners?
No, just very, very happy to be here. Once again, keep listening to the podcast, guys. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the listeners can't see it, but I'm all dressed up for the 3rd time being here. So, special occasion. No, just give the weaker classes a try. Like we've said at the start, right now you get punished way less. And, I think together we can make the arena a little bit more of a variety, right? Rather than Jaina, Khadgar, Medivh, right? It's variety as well, but not the variety.
Make arena great again.
Make arena
there
great
you go.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so until next time, this is ADWCTA.
This is Merps.
And this is Shadybunny.
See you guys.
See you guys. Bye.